My name is Benny Johnson. As some of you know, I've been struggling with addiction. However, I decided to change my life and went into recovery. I've started this podcast 90 Days Clean, and I want to take you along in my journey. What does lie ahead of me? Let me be frank, I do not know. Will I ever drink again? I do not know. This is how Stairway to Redemption was born. It is my search for answer in a real-time process of what is going to work for me. It is then my aspiration to help you figure out what's going to work for you. It is our journey together. Hi guys, welcome to Stairway to Redemption. My guest in this week episode of Stairway to Redemption is Michael Mhooper, the Director of Outreach at Smart Recovery. For those who don't know, Smart Recovery is an addiction recovery program worldwide. And without further ado, Michael, why don't you give a quick introduction about yourself?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Bennett, for having me on the show, and my greetings to everybody listening. So as you mentioned, I am the Outreach Director for Smart Recovery USA. I'm also the co-founder for the Veterans and First Responders community groups for Smart Recovery here in the US. I am in long-term recovery myself for alcoholism and clinical depression. I found Smart Recovery at the VA back in 2017 when I had reached a very, very critical point in my life where alcoholism was causing severe issues, including loss of jobs, multiple arrests, loss of trust with my family, and major complications with health. I was staring at a lot of horrible consequences, and I really did not know where to turn. My military background allowed me the opportunity to be able to call the VA for help with their crisis hotline. They admitted me to the West Haven VA, and during the detox progress, we were introduced to the program of Smart Recovery as an elective. I had never heard of the program before, and I had attempted many programs in the past and were unsuccessful. So I came into Smart very dubious of it being anything different than what I've already seen. And from the first meeting, I was happy to say I was completely wrong. I was presented with a different approach to recovery that I had not known existed. And that's something about this program that's really kept me involved, not only as a participant, but as a volunteer and now as a professional. And what SMART is in a secular evidence-based program that helps individuals self-manage their addictive or destructive behaviors. We do this by teaching skills and techniques heavily based in cognitive behavioral therapy and rational emotive behavioral therapy to help individuals self-manage their addictions or their maladaptive disorders by building and maintaining their motivation, coping with their urges and triggers, managing thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and living a balanced lifestyle. We call this the 4-point system of SMART. And we utilize this as a guide through our recovery process, whatever that process and recovery may mean to the individual participating. What SMART is self-empowerment. We help the individual realize that they are capable of making proper decisions in their lives to combat their addictive or disruptive disorders. And we have many different ways of doing that and many variations of the programs to make sure that we fit the individual's needs, regardless of what they may be, to help them reach their recovery goals and help them to understand what those recovery goals are, as well as living the lifestyle that they've always wanted to achieve. Not just being able to stop the addiction disorder, but understanding why it was there in the first place and how they can live successful and enjoyable lives without it. And that's what we do pretty much in a nutshell here at Smart, and very proud to be a part of it and doing it for a living every day.
Oh yeah, thank you very much for this introduction. Before we dive into the technical question about Smart, I like to start my podcast with a segment called the State of the Mind Address. You know, it's a play on word with the State of the Union Address. And so how is it being the Director of Outreach at what's going on in your life lately? How does it go?
Oh man, like you, believe it or not, you're the first person to ever ask me that in a podcast or interview. I'll tell you what, Vinny, I am the first person to hold this position within Smart. We're a
Okay.
nonprofit program, so we don't have a lot of employees. The majority of our team are volunteers across the United States, and we have thousands of volunteers, but not very many employees. The position of outreach was first created exclusively for the state of Ohio. And I was the first person to ask to helm the position. And now I am overseeing outreach opportunities all across the country. It's a very intimidating position. I was in the military for a number of years, and then working in various forms of management in my professional life, which prepared me well for this position. But the reason why I say intimidating is because we're talking about a subject matter that's extremely important to me. Obviously,
Yes,
as a
very
person,
personal.
right? It's very personal. Exactly. This is not just a job for me. This is a calling. This is something that I feel that I went through all of those obstacles, trials, and tribulations to be able to have the opportunity to bring this message to other people who may be struggling to find help. And because of that, there's a lot more emotional attachment to what I do than my previous jobs or employment. So it is very intimidating, but also very rewarding at the same time. I've touched communities and lives that thought there was no hope, thought that this was the only option that I could do, and they were living in a state where future seemed very bleak to them because they did not believe change was possible. And I am honored and privileged to say that I was a part of helping them find a different path towards the true goals that they were looking for. And it's very rewarding to know that I was a part of that process for many people in the last 2 years and change that I've been doing this. So as intimidating and scary as the job is, I find it very rewarding, very fulfilling, and I love the challenge. I love challenges. I'm a competitive person. I love the opportunity of an obstacle, and I'm not someone that shies away from difficulty anymore. And I actually have the program to thank for that, because I wasn't always like that. But now, because of the skills that I've learned through Smart Recovery, my self-confidence in my abilities and my self-acceptance in my limitations are strong enough to move me through any obstacle that I've faced so far, including this position. So yes, I'm in a good state of mind doing this. I enjoy it, and I hope I can retire leaving Smart Recovery in a better place than I found it. So yeah.
I mean that's amazing. You know that like you pioneer basically this position that's director of outreach, because let's be honest, like I heard about Smart through like the IOP center I went. And we have a mutual friend that introduced us, shout out Katie. So like, unfortunately, the Smart program is not as popular as the AA program yet. But like, what do you think is that? What does Smart has? How is Smart a viable alternative to AA for those who are like, shunned away from the Alcoholic Anonymous?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. It's a very common question that I get, and I like to actually redirect it a little bit, because we're not an alternative to AA. We're simply another path that can either be used in conjunction with AA, or can be used as its own primary source of recovery. We've actually polled our participants over time, and the last survey we took found out that over 31% of our participants practice another form of recovery, including 12-step. So that's one of the things, that's great about this program, is that even if there are components of 12-step that a person likes, but there may be some things that are lacking, they can augment those points with the Smart Recovery program while not feeling like they have to give up what is working with AA or any of the moms, right? So, but on the other side of the coin, if there is a person that completely says, okay, I've tried 12-step, this isn't working, I've tried such and such, this isn't working, what else is out there? and someone says, hey, why don't you try smart recovery? And they ask exactly what you asked. Well, what's different about smart recovery than any of these other programs? Well, the answer to that goes back into the description that I said when we first started our conversation, and that's the component of self-management. SMART is an acronym. It stands for self-management and recovery training. And what I love about the acronym of that is because the definition of someone's recovery process within this program is right in the acronym itself. And let me explain what I mean by that. So let's start out actually from the end to the beginning. So let's start with the word training, right? When I talk about training with people, most people that I speak to have gone through some form of training in their lives, even if it's just academic, right? If you've gone to school or higher education platforms, if you've ever trained in sports, if you've ever wanted to be an athlete, if dance, music, or some type of extracurricular activity where you had to practice and learn and trial and error and grow and repeat, right? These are training practices, right? Smart recovery approaches recovery in the same way, right? We look at it as training. It's a process of learning. We understand that we have a goal. This is where I want to be in my recovery. How do I get there? Right? And what we do is we start by being very specific, by asking what we want for our futures, what are we doing to get there, and how do we feel about it? That feeling is very important, which brings me back to the self-management portion, because if it's important to me to believe in what I'm doing. If I don't believe in the process of what I'm training to do, my effectiveness in that training is not going to be as strong as it would be as if I believed in the process. Perfect example. So when I was a kid, I was forced to take martial arts, taekwondo, right? My parents made me go take it when I was right. I didn't like it back then, right? I was a softer kid. I didn't like getting punched or kicked or anything. But as I learned more about the art form, as I learned more about the Asian cultures and where it came from, the history of it, I became more intrigued about it, and I learned to believe in what I was doing, and because of the traditions and the histories behind it. And then I learned to love it, right? And so it was really about how I believed about the process. Nothing really changed about the training, right? It was the same training, but I believed in it because I learned about it. Recovery was the same thing for me. When I came to smart recovery, it was because I was asked these questions about what I wanted to do. I became intrigued with the process. You see what I'm saying? Like a lot of other places that I've gone to in recovery, I'm not asked about what I want. I'm told to
follow. Yeah, exactly.
Right. And I was not ever someone that wanted to follow. I wanted to say, I want to solve my problems. Give me the tools that I need to do that. What can I do? Smart recovery gave me those tools and helped me with those options. And then I learned how to move through those processes through trial and error, same as training, right? But the difference with smart is when I made a mistake in smart, I wasn't ridiculed or rejected or made to go back to the beginning of a process. I took what I knew to be effective. I kept that knowledge and only worked on what didn't work and fixed that. So this way, not only did I move forward with the knowledge that was already working, but the next time that same problem or issue came up, I was prepared for it. I was ready for it. And I was confident that I could get through it. And when I did get through it, I learned to celebrate it. I learned to congratulate myself and understand that it was my hard work to do that. So the self-management and recovery training aspect of what SMART is really about the empowerment of the individual, processing through their recovery, overcoming the obstacles through trial and error, and then understanding that they do possess the power to change. And that's what the real the difference was for me, was that self-empowering component that I could find answers that I needed to move forward in my recovery.
I totally, and what's funny is like a path to recovery, but it goes contrary to the first type of a program like AA, where we need to admit that we are powerless. You take a different approach by saying that we have the power. Another difference I found also with the AA program is you don't use in SMART, there's no use of labels like addict or alcoholics. I personally don't pay, I think like labels have the power that you give them. So whether like, for me, I can be like, yes, I'm an alcoholic, I'm an addict. it doesn't bother me that much. Sometimes I'm not, it can be fluid. It's just like, what what is the approach of SMART to labels? Why did you guys don't use labels? Like, what was the idea behind not using labels to describe yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. That's a great question. One of the reasons why the main reason why we don't use labels as a mandated part of the program is because, exactly like you said, some people, labels don't bother them, right? Some people that they actually are empowered by certain labels, right? And it's a reminder of what they're conquering on a daily basis when they're combating their addiction. But for others, labels can be very degrading, right? For many of us, especially, and we don't think about this often when we think about treatment, different cultural demographics, right? That are susceptible to terrible labels, right? Have a bad history with that type of language, right? And to be able to be put in a box by saying you're this, you're that, you're this, without knowing who I am, without knowing what I've gone through, without knowing what kind of human being that I'm aspiring to be, can be very degrading to some people. Yeah. I personally don't like being called an addict, because for me, when I was in active addiction, the person I was then to the person I am now are completely different human beings. Yeah. Right. Yes, I suffer from alcoholism, right? But when you approach somebody with cancer, you're not just, hey, you're a cancer sufferer. You know what I mean? That's not how you start your conversation. Yeah. You show them, you approach them with empathy, with reverence. You respect them and admire them for their courage to overcome their disease. We don't approach, I'm not going to say all, but many people in society don't approach addiction disorder with that same respect. So labels can sometimes be very stereotypical when approaching someone who's suffering from an addiction disorder. So we discourage the use of that because we want to encourage not only our participants, but the people who are viewing our participants to look past the label, look past the affliction that this person is suffering with. See the person for who they are, for the human being that they are aspiring to be, right? Past the label, past that one definition of a word that can ruin your entire outlook. I've done presentations to crowded audiences where I've told them to close their eyes. And when I say the word junkie, drunk, wino, alky, right? What comes to your mind? What's the picture that comes to your mind? When I say the word addict to you, what do you think of? Are the emotions that are affiliated with those words positive or negative, right? And many that are brave enough to answer say, it's true. When you said those words, I had horrible images in my head. I had people, homeless, sleeping under a bridge, shooting up in needles in beat up apartment buildings, right? Robbing, stealing, whatever, committing crimes to get what they needed. Like, it's all negative connotations attached to the stigma of addiction. And labeling can draw people towards that stigma rather than the recovery. So that's that's the main reason why we discourage the use of it, unless it is absolutely helpful for that individual and only that individual. We don't generalize in SMART. Everything is on an individual basis.
Yeah, I mean, like, that makes sense, because the same label can, to circle back to the cultural aspect and the cultural background of, like, some labels, what they can inflict, like, labeling a person as an addict who comes from a minority community doesn't cost them the same as, like, somebody who is, like, from an affluent background, so I totally understand that part. Another distinction in the SMART program is that you guys welcome medication-assisted treatment, or MAT. Methadone, buprenorphine are, like, and in the clean game, people, like, are kind of skeptical about those, because the question is, like, if you're on the methadone maintenance, for example, for people who are addicted to opiates, are you really clean? And here is another debate in recovery called, like, the debate of how effective harm reduction is in recovery, in your opinion.
Well, and thank you for bringing that up. This again is a disclaimer that I'm speaking for myself. as a person in long-term recovery, as someone that utilizes smart recovery as their primary source of maintaining my abstinence and my ability to recover. First off, I know that recovery means different things for different people, right?
Yeah.
I know that the process is different for different people. I am not a person that believes that a one-size-fits-all approach to recovery is the only way to be. We call ourselves an abstinence-oriented program because for those that suffer from addiction to illegal substances such as methadone or cocaine or even legal substances like alcohol, right? We endorse abstinence because it's the proven model to be the most effective against those disorders, right? We're an evidence-based program, but there are other disorders that you can't be totally abstinent from. I'll give you a perfect example: eating disorder.
Yeah.
Can't be abstinent from eating. We have to eat.
Yeah.
And I mean, if any of your viewers or listeners find a way that we don't have to eat and survive, please tell me, because I've been trying to leave. So you know what I mean? Since I'm 40. I want to hear it. Let me know. Write to me.
Yeah. Definitely.
But like, you understand, like what we do then is we create a balance. We create a plan to move away from harmful behavior, right? To come to a place of normalcy. Where did my harmful behavior come from? Why am I indulging or overindulging in this activity, which is causing me harm? Did I have a point in my life where I wasn't conducting this type of behavior, right? Can I get back to that point? Maybe that's my level of recovery. Harm reduction is very effective for people who may not be suffering from a clinical disorder, right? I know a lot of people who, because of the pandemic, because of the lockdowns, because of working at home, changed their drinking habits to the point of being abusive, where they never had a history of alcohol abuse before in the past. When we looked at individuals such as that, and looked at the why and started working on disputing the irrationalities behind the stress and the anxiety and the mismanagement of their emotional states due to being exposed to, the difficulties of being in the home and working at the same time and being around the family without a break and so on and so forth, we started to understand that there were better, more effective ways of self-care without having to overindulge in the alcohol. When these people started practicing these tools, they were able to get back to that lifestyle that they enjoyed beforehand. Now, in certain circles, that would be looked at as they're shunning them because they're automatically, if you're overindulging, you're automatically an addict. I don't believe in that. I believe that sometimes situations can cause harmful habits, i.e., I am a veteran. I am someone who proudly served this country. My experience in the military was hindered because of my addiction. I could have been a much better soldier than I was, but I wasn't. I'm not going back to that. But what I do understand is that there are many people who served this country proudly, who came back with horrible addiction habits due to the trauma that they received during their service. These are not people that were suffering from an addiction disorder prior to this experience. It was created because of the experience itself. Can these people utilize a harm reduction model effectively and get back to a sense of normalcy? Absolutely. Absolutely, in my opinion. Yes. So when I look at that, and this goes towards MAT as well, since you brought that up, it is about the individual, right? If we are going to be true to saying we're going to meet people where they are, then that means let's really meet them where they are. Let's listen to what they want for their recovery, rather than us projecting our beliefs, our morals, and our ideologies onto their recovery process. So that's where I stand with that. And I think that that's where most of the recovery community is starting to lead, because COVID helped expose a lot of these gaps in where we were in our recovery process. So that's where in my opinion, I stand with that towards harm reduction and MAT.
Yeah. I mean, I share that was beautifully answered. I share your opinion that, like, if harm reduction is effective, why not? Why not doing it? I have another question about like the concept, about SMART. Do you guys believe in the concept of higher power? Because the God concept scared some people from the room in AA. And even though AA doesn't specify the higher power as God, it's mentioned a lot in the room because of the history of AA and how people are, some people still say the Our Father in the rooms, like, which bothers me a little bit because that's not a religious program, that's an agnostic program. Is there conflict between the higher power concept and SMART? Like, yeah.
There is no conflict because it's, again, SMART is a program of choice. The only thing that we ask individuals that do practice religious beliefs and utilize them in their recovery is that they're respectful of others in the room who may not, right?
Okay.
When we speak in our program, we always speak in I statements. We take accountability. We don't give advice. We don't tell people what to do. Even our facilitators are trained in motivational interviewing techniques. So we help individuals find their pathways through to their recovery through presenting different options, right? And understanding that not everybody understands recovery or reaches recovery in the same way. There is a factual basis towards the power of spirituality for individuals in healing, right? We understand that there's holistic approaches to medical treatment that have been shown to be effective. Have they been shown to be 100% effective? No, because nothing is 100% effective, right? So again, why are we treating recovery different than we treat any other medical treatment modality? Some people will find spirituality to be very, very strengthening. I know a lot of people that rely heavily upon their quote unquote higher powers to help them through their struggles. I am a person who is of internal locus of control. I believe that I am in control of the decisions that I make and the consequences, therefore, of those decisions. So my spirituality practices may differ from somebody who may rely upon a higher power, but that does not believe I don't respect or accept their beliefs. When in SMART recovery, we ask the participant to only work with what works for them. And sometimes that's not easy for people to do because being honest with oneself is not always something individuals are good at, right? There's a lot of things that can be blocking someone's honesty towards where they want to be in their recovery, right? They may be adhering to a recovery model simply because of an external motivation or someone telling them, or they feel that someone wants them to do this. This is why those 3 questions in the beginning of SMART recovery are so important. What do you want for your future? What are you doing to get there? How do you feel about it? Because if you're practicing a spiritually based recovery model and you're not a spiritual person, what are the chances of that model being effective for you towards the goals you really want? So spirituality, there is no conflict in SMART recovery with spirituality. It's a program of choice. If you are a spiritual person and find power in that, let's encourage it. Let's build it. But if you're not, let's focus on what does instead of worrying about the things that have absolutely no place in your particular recovery model.
I see. Oh, that's great. I would like to now board the 4-point program in SMART. Could you dive in more in those different? I think one is build and maintain motivation, cope with urges. I'm curious about that one because I wonder how. And 3 is manage thoughts, feelings, and behavior. And 4 is live a balanced life. Could you extrapolate a bit more on those different points?
Absolutely. So first, let me start off on how they're used. Our 4-point system is not a linear system like you would see in 12-step. We use our 4-point system as a guide. Okay, it's through the different modalities of someone's stages of change. So we help a person navigate their recovery by understanding those 4 points within the SMART recovery program. So let's start with point 1, building and maintaining motivation. When you come to a point that you've made a decision to change, we want to make sure that decision stays there, right? Like you've made I want to make a commitment to change my life. Right? Something's motivating you to do that, right? How do we encapsulate that motivation and build on it, right? So what we do is we focus on tools to help build that up, keep people structured, keep people engaged, keep people wanting the tract of success towards their reaching these milestones within their recovery. So we work on tools that are specific to those goals. For instance, helping an individual locate their hierarchy of values. What is important to you? What do you value in your life? What are the things that are on the pedestals for you to put above everything else that you're striving for? And what we do is we literally help people write those things down. We believe in the tangibility of journalism. We believe in the tangibility of writing and creating, because those are things that a lot of people can hold on to, can physically see and say, yes, that came from me, right? So we work these tools on our worksheets and our workbooks, and we write down and look at, these are the things that are important to us. This is what matters to me. And you know what's funny, Vinny, when we do that most of the time, most people, I want to say 99% of the people that write out the hierarchy values tool for the first time when trying to discover what will motivate them to remain in the stage of change towards recovery, does not include their addiction, despite the fact that their addiction consumed their lives, right? Mm-hmm. So we realize by that simple tool, that simple technique, we realize many of us have this realization that, wow, I don't really value my addiction. So why am I allowing it to get in the way, right? Yeah. Why does this problem overcome everything in my life? And that brings us to the second, coping with urges and triggers, because a lot of people have very, very terrible misconceptions about their addiction. Oh, it's in my blood. I'm genetic. It's part of my culture, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Right. So like, I'm a person of color. I understand, you know what I mean? A lot of the myths that come from cultural misconceptions behind addiction. Right. So yes. I understand that, listen, yes, we could be swayed the wrong way to believe about what we are and are not capable of, but that does not mean that we are tied or bound to it. Right. And there's evidence to that all over history. Right? And we understand that. We don't have to get into that conversation. But coping with urges and triggers for those aspects of understanding, how do I defeat those cravings? How do I defeat the quote unquote need for my drug or my addiction, whatever you may call it, right? Well, we start to break that down. We start to understand the irrationality behind certain beliefs and thoughts. Another one of our major tools, disputing irrational beliefs and thought processes. When I'm thinking I have to use, right? Why do I have to use? Have I ever stopped and really broke it down and said, why do I have to do these things? And kept breaking it down till I get to a concept that I can start to rationalize, right? And by doing that, when we start to break these things down, sometimes simply by just asking the question, why do I feel this way? Why do I think this way? And start really analyzing these concepts, we start to ask ourselves three questions. Is this thought process based in logic? Is it based in any type of facts that I've seen in my life? And most importantly, is it helpful for me? And Benny, if I can say no to any of those questions, I can start to dispute that pattern of thinking to help me combat the urge and craving. So that's one example of how we do that. Then we have the third point of managing thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. This is really what derives around the cognitive behavioral therapeutic techniques, right? Understanding how I feel about myself, understanding how I feel and relate to the lifestyle that I'm currently living to where I want to be. What are the factors that go into the way I see who I am and where I'm going? We learn tools like unconditional self-acceptance. Accepting myself, not just for the good, but understanding I've made mistakes, understanding that I've had problems, understanding that I haven't been the best human being I want to be, but that's not all of who I am, right? I see. I don't label myself as, I am not a failure just because I've failed, right? There's a difference. We are very, 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 very conscious of word exchange in Smart Recovery, which is another tool of managing our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Think about the change and the power we do when we take away the words "I have to" and put "I choose to."
It's true,
right? And when we create options, we're able to start to put a lot more management towards the decisions that we make, whether it be thought, feeling, or action, right? So that's one of the major concepts that we utilize for that. And then the fourth point, which is my personal favorite, right? Living a balanced lifestyle. Why is it my personal favorite? Because for me personally in recovery, it wasn't enough just to stop. I had to have a reason why I was stopping. I had to have a reason beyond romanticizing about my past behaviors in addiction. I wanted to desire the new life in recovery. Recovery is not work for me. I live this lifestyle proudly, right? And I smile about it every day because the life I have now is 10 times better than the life I was living when I thought I was feeling good about myself. I didn't know what feeling good was back then. Now I do, right? Because I understand and cultivate the new life in recovery. We do that by creating techniques and tools in our new lifestyle of recovery. Vital, absorbing, creative interest. Vital, meaning that it is vital to my recovery. Creative, because it's something I wasn't able to do during my addictive behavior, right? And these interests are mine. They're things that I love to do. Maybe it was something that I couldn't do in my past due to my addictive disorder, right? Maybe I wasn't healthy enough. Maybe I didn't have enough money. Maybe I didn't have the social networking that I've created in recovery, right? But now that I have these tools at my disposal, I can start looking at new ways to live my life, new ways that help me smile and mean it, right? And those are towards those vital, absorbing, creative interests that we help cultivate in Smart Recovery. So those are the 4-point systems that we utilize and some of the tools that go along with them. And that helps us guide us through the process of where we are currently to where we want to go. And that's what Smart's really all about. It's about moving forward in my recovery.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much for explaining and detailing those points. Now I would like to report your demographic. I see that you do a lot of meetings for the veterans and the first responders, some for the teen and teenagers. Are they like, what was the idea behind targeting those specific demographic? Is it like, was it because you saw that they were the most in need? Was it like because those kind of felt alienated by other programs? Like, why is meetings specific for them?
Well, I'll go even beyond that. I'll go beyond just the veterans and first responders or young adults. All of the variations of our program, right? Whether it be LGBTQIA, whether it be young people's meetings, whether it be for women only, men only, medical professionals. We create the BIPOC meetings. We create these spaces of safety because we understand that for many people to recover properly, comfortability is a absolutely vital component, right?
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
We have to understand not only the person who is presenting the model of recovery, but the people around us, right, can resonate with what I am saying. Concepts that 12-step have done very well over the almost 100 years, right? Creating that social ability and connection, right, is a very, very strong component of the 12-step program. Smart Recovery also has that, right? We just go about it in a different way. It's a program of choice. So some people crave that social connection, and we want to create those spaces that are safe for not just them, but for everyone involved in the process, right? So we create opportunities for our program to be molded, to be changed, to evolve, right? We call ourselves an evidence-based program, and instead of a science-based program, because we go by evidence. Evidence meaning that if it's effective and proven to work, we can use it in this program. And the more we evolve, the better it is for our participants. So we want to create safe spaces where they don't have to worry about ridicule, persecution, judgment, guilt, or shame. They can come into a room, speak about their lifestyles, their particular components of their demographics, of who they are, where they come from, and what they've experienced without fear. And they can do that and look around at people who understand exactly where they're coming from. I can speak for the veterans and first responders and active duty personnel that come into my meetings because I've had so many comments on them, right? Because they can come into a room and talk about the trauma that is exclusive to people of service that serve our country, right? Whether that be in our communities, overseas, wherever they put the uniform on and how they choose to put that uniform on, right? But that they can speak about these hardships and not be met with these wide-eyed looks of disbelief or this falsifying hero worship. It's met with understanding, with nodding heads. I've been there. I felt you. I understand. I see what you're saying. And we try to emulate that in all of our our specific meetings to different demographics. We want that level of comfortability for everyone that comes to our programs. So what we do is we don't ask the people to change for our program. We ask the program to change for its people. And that's what we do. Yeah.
I see. That's no surprising. You guys are the worldwide program and international. Speaking of self help, you guys have that workbook called the Successful Life Skills SLS workbook.
My favorite.
That's like what?
That's my favorite. That's my favorite program that we have.
Oh, okay. So like it's the 12-week self-help program, right? Mm-hmm. So like how does it work? So once you have the self-book, is it in conjunction with meetings in the community, or is it just like something you can do by yourself?
So great question. So the Successful Life Skills program was derived from our Inside Out program, which is the program that we created for individuals who are incarcerated for drug-related crimes or addiction disorder. So the Successful Life Skills program is a shortened version of that larger program, which moves through many of our predominant CBT and REBT tools and techniques on a 12-week sequential course line, where an individual can survey and gauge themselves in their growth of the understanding of these processes within the Smart Recovery program. And then at the end of the process, be able to take those same surveys again at the end of the 12 weeks to gauge where they now hold their mentality towards themselves and their recovery, and see where that growth has gained them. The great thing about the Successful Life Skills program, we know, which I like very much for treatment centers, IOPs, reentry programs, and other structuredized recovery models, is that it gives you a tangible way to gauge a beginning, middle, and end process of those going through the stages of change presented in our recovery system. And then what's great about that is that if the participant is receptive to this program, they do well through the Successful Life Skills program, and they understand it, they adhere to it, it's helping their recovery, they can easily transition into standardized discussion meetings in SMART. So the great thing about Successful Life Skills program that I love about the program, it's an excellent way to introduce a population who may not have known about SMART recovery before to a new concept of recovery, which is why when we partnered with other organizations in the past, like the Fletcher Group, our COE, which is dedicated to bringing recovery resources into rural areas, we partnered with them to bring Successful Life Skills training into rural community homes that did not have the resources or materials to host their own recovery meetings. We've been working with them over the past year on this project, as thanks to the grant from HRSA, to bring this across the United States. And we're working very well on this so far. And many of these communities had never heard of SMART before. And the Successful Life Skills program is an excellent way to expose people who may not have had any experience to CBT before in the past to have a comfortable step-by-step way to maneuver through those tools to come out the other end and understand them comfortably to participate in SMART by the end. So that's what that is in a nutshell, what the Successful Life Skills is. And it's my personal favorite because I've seen such great success with that in many of the structuredized models of recovery demographics that I interact with within outreach.
All right. Thank you very much. Wow, that was really good. So we are like about to reach the end of this interview. I would like to finish by opening the floor to you. What's the future for the SMART program? How can we find you? Where to start for those who are listening to us?
Absolutely. Well, I will always recommend to start by going to our homepage on our website, www.smartrecovery.org. SMART started as an online platform in 1994, where we are one of the leaders in digital recovery services. It's one of the reasons why we were able to transition so fluently during the pandemic. Many of our meetings that were hit with restrictions and on in-person translated to online very smoothly because our platform's been established for almost 30 years. So check out the website. Very easy to maneuver. If you're in crisis and looking for meetings, you can go right there, straight to our meeting finder, plug in where you live, and see all the options that come up to you, both in person, online, or hybrid versions available. So we have an online community that has over 250 mutual support meetings from coast to coast, Monday through Sunday available, as well as forums and abilities to interact with other volunteers and participants on the digital services, and as well as a smart recovery app that's available right on your smartphone. Here in the US, downloadable by Google Play or the App Store for free. And that plugs you into the very same services on our website, plus podcasts, informational blogs, as well as daily motivations and tips and tools that can be found on our YouTube page as well, Smart Recovery TV. So if you're looking to contact me personally for anything that we've talked about today or outreach efforts that you might want to find out more about Smart Recovery for your area, community, or facility, please feel free to email me at mhooper, that's mhooper, at smartrecovery.org. And I want to thank you, for getting this together. And thank Katie. You shouted her out before. Our mutual friend, Katie works. She's the head of training department here. I call her the silent assassin of Smart Recovery because she's always in the background, but she does such tremendous things. She changes the face of the world of recovery all the time. So thank you to Katie and for us to bringing us together. And I really enjoyed this, man. I appreciate you having me on as a guest. This was really, really a breath of fresh air. And thank you for such great and intricate questioning. I really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, Michael. Yes, so thank you again for doing this, and shout out again to Katie. You're very proficient and skilled and direct to the point when it comes to those questions. The interview was super easy. You know what you're talking about, and I really enjoy learning more about Smart, and I'm sure we're gonna stay in touch. And So to our viewers, that's it for today. I will close with the closing statement later. All right, guys, see you next time. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Yeah.
There you have it, folks. This concludes episode 5, doing it the smart way. What a great episode it was. Thanks again to Michael Hooper for being the subject of my interview. All the links to Smart Recovery and Michael's email will be added in the description. Quick feedback on this episode. I'm very intrigued and curious about the Smart Recovery program, and I'm planning on attending a few meetings. I'll probably take this opportunity to take a next week episode to make to release a solo episode next the week and talk about where I am in my recovery. I think a solo episode is due. The plan, I'm gonna talk about what I've been doing, how is it now to be 100 in about 20 days, so 4 months sober. So that will be the first, hopefully the first of many solo episodes in the future. As always, follow us on IG at Stairway to Redemption, TikTok, subscribe on Spotify and Apple Podcast, and please leave a review. See you guys next week. Bye.